What really unfolds when the wife of a powerful senator is caught driving drunk and, in a flash of pure entitlement, pulls out her phone mid-hearing to call her husband for a bailout? This 45-year-old defendant is about to learn the hard way that a marriage certificate is not a get-out-of-jail-free pass. While she expected protection, her husband chose principle instead, delivering a stunning moment that left the entire courtroom silent. But this case goes far beyond an ordinary DUI. It's about the innocent victim she hit, the destruction she caused, and the unforgettable instant when Judge Caprio put the senator on speakerphone for all to hear. Before we jump into this legendary takedown, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Buckle up, because the next few minutes will completely restore your faith that inside this courtroom, political power buys absolutely zero immunity from consequences. It's a Wednesday afternoon in Providence Municipal Court, and the tension is palpable as Judge Frank Caprio prepares to review a case that has already set the local rumor mill buzzing, centered on Diana Crawford, the 45-year-old wife of prominent Rhode Island State Senator Michael Crawford. She stands accused of a lengthy list of serious charges: driving under the influence causing property damage, leaving the scene of an accident, and a cold failure to render aid. To understand why the stakes feel so high, we have to rewind just 9 days to 9:47 p.m. in a quiet Providence shopping center parking lot, where security cameras recorded a chain of events that is as clear as it is devastating. The footage shows Diana Crawford steering her luxury Mercedes SUV through the lot with obvious erratic behavior before violently slamming into a parked 2015 Honda Accord. The collision was so forceful it crushed the rear quarter panel, destroyed the bumper, and caved in the trunk, instantly setting off the Honda's alarm and activating its rear collision sensors. That Honda didn't belong to just anyone. It was the lifeline of Robert Martinez, a 67-year-old Vietnam War veteran who was inside the nearby pharmacy at that exact moment, picking up critical medication for his wife, who suffers from MS and depends on him entirely due to severe mobility limitations. The security video is damning. It shows Diana stumbling out of her Mercedes, unsteady on her feet, walking over to inspect the wreckage she caused, and then, after staring at the damage, making the deliberate choice to get back into her vehicle and drive away. She leaves no note, makes no call to police, and never checks whether a human being might be inside that mangled metal. Fortunately, a vigilant witness recorded her license plate, allowing officers to trace her to her home just 40 minutes later. There, her blood alcohol content measured at 0.14, nearly twice the legal limit, leading investigators to conclude she was likely closer to a staggering 0.16 at the moment of impact. When officers attempted to place her under arrest, her first response was not remorse, but outrage, as she shouted, "Do you know who my husband is?" Referring to Senator Michael Crawford, a man ironically praised for his work on criminal justice reform. Now, 9 days later, Diana walks into Judge Caprio's courtroom not as a remorseful defendant, but with the air of a VIP irritated by a scheduling inconvenience. She's dressed in an expensive outfit and accompanied by Thomas Whitmore, a high-powered attorney from a politically connected firm, carrying his briefcase with the confidence of someone accustomed to making problems disappear. Judge Caprio observes her entrance, noting that she looks less like someone facing jail time and more like a socialite arriving at a charity luncheon expecting applause. He makes sure every charge is read clearly and loudly into the public record. When Whitmore immediately asks for a private sidebar to discuss sensitive matters related to Mrs. Crawford's status, Judge Caprio shuts him down with swift, unmistakable authority, reminding him that this is a public courtroom where behavior must withstand public scrutiny. Unfazed, Whitmore shifts tactics, attempting to use the senator's legislative achievements and the family's civic contributions as a protective shield for his client. Judge Caprio cuts him off mid-sentence, stating firmly, "Mr. Whitmore, your client's husband's legislative record is not evidence in this case. We are here to address what she did, not who she's married to." If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now, because what happens next perfectly illustrates what occurs when unchecked political entitlement collides with real accountability. Judge Caprio locks eyes with the defendant and asks the most basic question: "Do you understand the charges against you?" Diana gives a brief nod, her face revealing a troubling blend of boredom and irritation, before replying, "Yes, Your Honor, but I believe there's been some exaggeration about what actually happened." That single statement prompts Judge Caprio to immediately reach for the police report, dismantling her narrative with cold, undeniable facts. "Mrs. Crawford," he reminds her, "you struck a parked vehicle while driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.14 and left the scene without providing information. These are facts, not exaggerations." As her version of events begins to unravel, Diana tries to pivot toward a technical defense, arguing that the damage wasn't severe and that she believed the parking lot was private property, suggesting she didn't think reporting it was required. Judge Caprio's expression hardens as he delivers a firm lesson in civic law, explaining that hit-and-run laws apply on both public and private property, and that the seriousness of damage is not for the offender to decide. He signals the clerk to play the security footage. The courtroom screen flickers on, showing Diana's Mercedes violently striking Robert Martinez's Honda, the impact clearly strong enough to trigger the alarm. The video then shows Diana exiting her vehicle, standing over the crushed metal for nearly 30 agonizing seconds, before casually returning to her driver's seat and speeding away. The footage destroys any claim of confusion or ignorance. There is no uncertainty here, only a calculated decision to flee. When Judge Caprio confronts her with the video, Diana claims she was in shock and not thinking clearly. The judge responds sharply, "Mrs. Crawford, the footage shows you standing there for 30 seconds examining the damage. That's long enough to leave a note, long enough to call the police, and long enough to do the right thing." With Diana silenced by the visual evidence, Judge Caprio turns to the emotional heart of the case, reading the victim impact statement from Robert Martinez. He describes the devastation of returning to find his car destroyed, facing a $1,000 insurance deductible that is overwhelming for a retired veteran on a fixed income, especially with his wife's wheelchair-accessible van already in the shop, making that Honda their only means of getting her to critical medical appointments. When asked whether she has attempted to apologize or offer help, her attorney interjects that legal strategy prevented any contact, a claim that earns a sharp rebuke from Judge Caprio, who snaps, "Legal strategy does not erase moral responsibility, Mr. Whitmore," prompting Diana to finally speak, her tone sounding less remorseful and more transactional, as she states, "My family is prepared to cover the damages. We simply want to resolve this quietly and move on." The word quietly lingers in the air like a toxic fog, prompting Judge Caprio to repeat it with open disbelief, pointing out that she wants a quiet resolution only because of her husband's title, while the Martinez family cannot suffer quietly as they live every day with the very public financial and physical consequences of her actions. As Diana's jaw tightens in real frustration that her checkbook can't make this disappear, Judge Caprio calls Officer Jennifer Santos to the stand. Officer Santos testifies that at the time of arrest, Diana smelled strongly of alcohol and was openly dismissive, repeatedly asking, "Do you know who my husband is?" and calling the arrest a waste of resources that should be focused on real crimes. The courtroom then fills with the crackling audio from the officer's body camera, broadcasting Diana's slurred, indignant voice to everyone present. "Do you know who my husband is? He's a state senator. You're making a huge mistake. This will be taken care of." The recording captures entitlement in its purest form. Those words echo through the courtroom, followed by a silence so heavy it feels as if the oxygen has been sucked from the room, leaving Diana Crawford exposed under the harsh fluorescent lights. Judge Caprio looks down at her with a gaze that cuts straight through her social standing, reminding her that the recording was made at 10:32 p.m., a full 45 minutes after she struck Mr. Martinez's vehicle and fled. Meaning that instead of checking on the victim or reflecting on the damage she caused, she spent nearly an hour crafting a strategy to weaponize her husband's political status against officers simply doing their jobs. When Diana tries to stammer out the familiar excuse that she was stressed and didn't mean it, Judge Caprio shuts her down immediately, telling her she meant every word because she genuinely believed, and clearly still believes, that her husband's position is a magic eraser for criminal behavior. And then, in a moment that defies logic, courtroom decorum, and basic common sense, Diana makes a catastrophic mistake that proves the judge's point better than any prosecutor ever could. She reaches into her designer purse, pulls out her cell phone in the middle of her own hearing, and actually starts dialing. Judge Caprio's voice slices through the room sharp enough to draw blood. "Mrs. Crawford, what are you doing?" Her response is entitlement distilled to its core. "I'm calling my husband. He can explain this better than I can." The entire courtroom freezes, lawyers, bailiffs, and the gallery alike unable to process that a defendant is attempting to phone a friend during an active criminal proceeding, as if this were a minor inconvenience at a restaurant rather than a court of law. Ordered to put the phone away, she hesitates, holding it to her ear like a lifeline, insisting that he handles legal matters and will know what to say. Judge Caprio is forced to spell out the gravity of her actions, stating firmly that attempting to summon political backup during an ongoing hearing constitutes direct contempt of court. Diana finally lowers the phone, but the damage is done. She has shown everyone present that she views this courtroom as a customer service desk her husband can fix. Recognizing a teachable moment of historic proportions, Judge Caprio makes a legendary decision. He orders the bailiff to retrieve the phone and decides to give Diana exactly what she asked for, a conversation with her husband, but on his terms, in public, and on the record. He instructs the clerk to place a call to Senator Crawford. Within minutes, the line connects and is put on speakerphone, transforming the courtroom into a stage of public accountability. "Senator Crawford, this is Judge Frank Caprio. Your wife is here for a hearing, and she just attempted to call you," he explains, setting the stage for what Diana assumes will be her rescue. But when Senator Michael Crawford's voice fills the room, it carries no outrage on her behalf, only a heavy, weary apology for her behavior. He states plainly that she had no right to make that call. Diana tries to interrupt, desperate to regain control, but she's silenced as her husband continues, revealing that he has known about the incident since the night of the arrest and had explicitly told her to take responsibility and apologize to Mr. Martinez. Her eyes widen as the ground shifts beneath her feet. This is not the rescue she imagined. When Judge Caprio asks the ultimate question, "Are you asking this court to show leniency to your wife because of your position?" the senator's answer hits Diana like a physical blow. "No, Your Honor." He proceeds to dismantle her entitlement live on the record, stating that being married to a state senator does not excuse drunk driving, property damage, or abandoning an elderly veteran to deal with the consequences alone. When Diana whispers, "Michael, what are you doing?" he delivers the final verdict on both her entitlement and his integrity. "I've spent my career working on criminal justice reform. I can't advocate for accountability publicly and then ask for exemptions privately." The courtroom falls into stunned silence as it becomes clear to Diana that her political card has just been declined. "Robert Martinez is a Vietnam War veteran, and my father served in Vietnam," Senator Crawford continues, his voice heavy with personal shame that seems to press down on the room. He says that the fact his wife hit Mr. Martinez's car and drove away, leaving a man who served his country to deal with the fallout alone, is something he finds deeply disgraceful. He adds that Mr. Martinez deserves honor and respect, not hit-and-run treatment from someone who then threatened police officers with her husband's title to escape responsibility. The courtroom remains frozen in absolute silence, broken only by the sound of Diana crying, tears born not of remorse, but of shock and rising panic as she realizes her safety net has been reduced to ashes. "Your Honor," the senator concludes, "whatever sentence you find appropriate, you have my full support. My wife needs to learn that her last name does not grant her immunity from consequences. If this were any other defendant, I would expect full accountability, and I expect the same here." Judge Caprio thanks the senator and ends the call, leaving Diana standing completely alone at the defense table, her anticipated rescue transformed into public accountability. His voice returns, calm but unyielding, as he addresses her directly. "Mrs. Crawford, your husband, the man you tried to call for help in the middle of this hearing, just told this court to treat you like any other defendant. So let's do exactly that." He methodically reviews the towering stack of evidence stacked against her. The security footage confirming the hit and run. The body camera audio exposing her entitlement. The .14 BAC establishing her intoxication. And her conduct in court demonstrating her ongoing disrespect for the rule of law. The sentence he delivers isn't just punishment, it's a full dismantling of her privilege. For the DUI, she is fined $1,000, ordered to complete mandatory alcohol education, and given a 1-year license suspension. For leaving the scene, she receives an additional $500 fine. For failure to render aid and for contempt of court stemming from her phone stunt, another $750 in fines is imposed, along with 80 hours of community service. But Judge Caprio isn't finished. He goes further, striking where it truly matters, ordering full restitution of $5,300 to make the victim whole, covering Mr. Martinez's vehicle repairs and insurance deductible. He also mandates court-reviewed apology letters addressed to both the victim and the arresting officer. Then comes the masterstroke. He orders that her 80 hours of community service be served specifically at a veterans support organization, where she will personally transport elderly veterans to their medical appointments, forcing her to provide the very help she denied Mr. Martinez. When her attorney objects, calling the $7,550 financial penalty and the strict conditions excessive, Judge Caprio silences him without hesitation. "Mr. Whitmore, your client drove drunk, caused substantial property damage, fled the scene, threatened police officers, and then attempted to call her husband during active court proceedings. Every consequence imposed today is directly proportional to her choices." As the gavel falls and Diana is escorted out of the courtroom, a moment unfolds that is even more revealing than her earlier outburst. She walks straight past Robert Martinez, the man whose life she upended, and treats him as if he were invisible, refusing to make eye contact or offer even a word of apology, proving she still hasn't fully grasped the humanity of the person she harmed. But Mr. Martinez, a man of quiet dignity, rises and asks to speak. His words bring tears to the eyes of everyone present as he tells Judge Caprio, "I'm 67 years old. I served in Vietnam, and I've never asked for special treatment. But Mrs. Crawford hit my car and drove away like I was nobody. Today, you showed me that in your courtroom, I'm somebody." Judge Caprio, visibly moved, nods with deep respect and replies, "Mr. Martinez, you've always been somebody." This court just made sure Mrs. Crawford learned that. The repercussions of the hearing spread like wildfire. Within hours, the audio of Diana attempting to call her husband becomes the viral clip of the week, dominating local headlines. But the real shock comes 2 days later, when Senator Crawford holds a somber press conference announcing that he and Diana are separating. He explains that he cannot dedicate his career to justice system accountability while remaining married to someone who believes her connections place her above the law. The difficult decision unexpectedly boosts his approval ratings, as voters see a man choosing principle over personal comfort. Meanwhile, Diana's path toward redemption is only beginning. 3 weeks later, she reports for her court-ordered community service, driving elderly veterans to medical appointments. For the first month, she is silent, resentful, and treats the assignment as a punishment to endure. But around week 5, the walls begin to crack. By week 12, she is truly listening to their stories, finally seeing the people behind the uniforms. Fate intervenes when she drives a man named Thomas Kim, who casually mentions serving in Vietnam with someone named Martinez. When Diana realizes it's the same Robert Martinez she victimized, the full weight of her actions crashes down, and she breaks. She finally understands she didn't just hit a Honda, she disrespected a man who sacrificed his youth for her freedom. She completes her 80 hours with a changed heart, writes apology letters that are genuinely sincere, and 6 months later requests a face-to-face meeting with Robert. In a quiet coffee shop, the woman who once arrogantly asked, "Do you know who my husband is?" sits across from her victim and humbly says, "I hit your car and drove away like you didn't matter. I was wrong about everything, and I'm sorry." Robert Martinez listens with the grace of a man who has endured too much to cling to resentment. He replies, "Mrs. Crawford, I forgive you. But understand this, I didn't serve this country so people like you could have special privileges. I served so everyone could be equal under the law." This time, the lesson sticks. 1 year later, Diana's license is reinstated. Her high-profile marriage is over, and her life looks completely different, but in a better way. She continues volunteering with the Veterans Organization long after her sentence ends, having learned the hard truth that respect isn't inherited through a marriage license or a bank account. It is earned solely through conduct. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want more unforgettable courtroom moments where political power crashes into a brick wall of accountability, and where legends like Judge Frank Caprio prove that no title and no powerful spouse places anyone above the law. Smash that like button if you agree that pulling out a phone to call your husband during a criminal hearing is the ultimate symbol of entitlement. And let me know in the comments, do you think Senator Crawford made the right decision by divorcing his wife, or was it too harsh? Because this story is about far more than a single drunk driver facing consequences. It's a lesson that political marriages don't grant legal immunity, that desperate phone calls can't erase moral responsibility, and that sometimes integrity truly wins over personal protection. Diana Crawford entered that courtroom convinced her husband's position would shield her from accountability. She dialed his number expecting rescue. Instead, she heard the one thing she never anticipated, a demand that she be treated like everyone else. That call, meant to save her, became the moment that shattered her illusion and changed her life forever. That is justice. That is integrity. And that is the enduring legacy of Judge Frank Caprio.